Hello, Kateryna, and thank you very much for joining us today on TVP World.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Now, as best as you can tell right now, this latest Russian offensive, how has it affected civilians in the areas where Russians have made the breakthrough, particularly Vovchansk and further up to the north? What are you hearing about the humanitarian situation in those areas?
So these strikes, of course, they continue to impact civilians and especially critical energy infrastructure, including, of course, in the east and south of Ukraine. Access not only to electricity, but also to other vital services and supplies remains limited for hundreds of thousands of people, not only in the Kharkiv region, but also in Odessa region, in the Sumy region. Civilians are living these areas and also frontline areas because they are seeing increased and continued hostilities. Of course, the cumulative impact of these attacks amount even to not only war crime, but also crime against humanity. I would like to highlight that these strikes, Russian strikes against Ukrainian civilian population, it is equal to torture because it repeats every day, especially every night. It has, as a result, many injured and killed people, in particular children, and of course homes, private buildings, schools, and other civilian facilities, they are also damaged and impacted.
I wanted to ask about the situation concerning children, because obviously, you know, for children at the moment it's still the school year, their education is disrupted, and obviously their psychological health obviously is impacted hugely. How do you address those issues?
So the situation with children remains very difficult because, of course, all Ukrainian children are victims of the Russian aggression. We are not talking even about deported or forcibly transferred children or children in occupied areas, because children under Ukrainian control, they are also targeted by Russians. As you have already mentioned about this limited access to educational services, yes, of course, but also we are talking about this mental trauma. And unfortunately, without national psychological rehabilitation program and support for these children, we are just not able to cover this this problem and this need. But our government is trying to do its best. As you know, inside the Council of Europe, we have established special platform in order to cover unique needs of all Ukrainian children, not only victims of deportation and forcible transfer, so not only children under Russian control, but Ukrainian children, children who are now in countries of Europe, also in Poland. And this platform will occupy all related questions to psychological rehabilitation, and also for some children we are talking about also physical rehabilitation. As I have already mentioned, they were victims of these indiscriminate attacks on civilian infrastructure, and that is why they were wounded.
Now, concerning humanitarian aid to some of these areas that are most affected by the Russian shelling and constant attacks, you mentioned, of course, the shortage of electricity in many places, which leads to difficulties getting water and just simply surviving. So tell us, how does humanitarian aid play a role in these areas?
So while mostly electricity and gas in collective centers have been restored, the services are available only for 6 or even less hours per day, and collective centers need fuels for generators. And also, of course, people are totally in need of many products, goods, and of course we have some humanitarian support, but we need more, and we also need to guarantee guarantee the safety of these humanitarian corridors, because many times, repeatedly, Russia targets this humanitarian assistance intentionally, and that is why we need to guarantee safety of all this aid, and also of people who are involved in the process of deliverance of this aid. Also, it is really important to highlight that without such a humanitarian assistance, and also without additional air defense systems and ammunition from our Western partners, it would be impossible for Ukraine to survive and protect the civilian population. And that is why we maybe all dive into this humanitarian catastrophe and into darkness. So now the situation in some areas, especially in the northeast and the east of Ukraine, is very, very hard. And Russia seems to start a new offensive, not only on the ground, but also a new air offensive. They are using everything possible, like ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, kamikaze drones. And for us, it's very, very difficult to protect critical infrastructure, but also civilian buildings from these attacks.
So in the current situation with this renewed attack from Russia, from a humanitarian perspective, what is it that you need most at the moment in terms of aid, humanitarian aid?
So we need weapon in order to protect ourselves. So we need an air defensive system.
No, but for humanitarian
and
aid,
we also need, of course, countries who are ready to meet our people, to welcome them, because we can document clear links between these strikes and between new flows of people, not only internally displaced people, but also people who unfortunately are leaving Ukraine and go to countries of the European Union just in order to survive, because it's impossible to survive on these areas.
Okay, well, Kateryna Rashevska, legal expert at the Regional Center for Human Rights, thank you very much for joining us and telling us about the dire situation that Ukraine is facing. Thank you, we appreciate it.